Chris, what was your message to the guys after that loss to NC State, one, and two, how they responded both immediately after that and in the day of practice since?
Well, I mean, the message was simple. We have to be better. We have to be better in all areas. We've hammered the defensive end, which I think has been plaguing our team here as of late. We've gone from being 12th in the country to barely top 50. It has to rectify itself. We have to be much better on that end of the floor with our communication, with our energy, and that's been the focus. We had only one practice. Obviously, we played on Wednesday. We had yesterday's practice, and we got after it. We're going to do the same thing today.
Chris, when you talk about, you've talked a lot about your team's consistency. If you ask a guy on this team, it seems like anybody about Sid, what they say is he's the same guy every day. How much has that helped him get where he's gotten the past few games?
It's everything. His attitude doesn't, reflect his production. It doesn't reflect the opportunity he gets in games. He just continues to be the same guy every day, and that same guy is a guy that works really hard, questions nothing, and just continues to improve. He arrived this late summer at 300 pounds, and he's gotten himself to 265 pounds, and with guidance from others, but it's all his own work ethic, and he's become a really effective player rapidly. Because in the beginning of the year, quite honestly, he didn't know where he needed to be defensively. He didn't know how to communicate, ball screens that were occurring at such a fast rate. He has taken huge steps forward. I mean, he's really become what we need around the basket.
For such an inexperienced player at this level, a couple times he got the ball a little away from the basket the other night and made a move. Has that surprised you at all, like what he can do with the ball once he gets it away from the basket a little bit?
I mean, I think he's been an instinctive player, ever since I saw him in high school. He just has a knack for figuring out how to beat his man and then use his wide shoulders and his explosiveness to get an angle, to get a shot. And he's got a really, really soft touch. He tends to go right shoulder. He tends to go to his left, but he's actually, really starting to expand his ability to go either way. I still think, he's more driven to his left hand, but, sometimes the guys that stick to what they're really good at are good at it for a reason. And even though a defense might know it's coming, it's still hard to stop. And I think that's what you've seen out of Sid the last couple games.
Chris, talking about Sid, everyone says the same thing. Same guy every day, same guy every day. How difficult is it to try and instill that mentality in everyone else around the roster, that model of consistency, knowing how up and down most people on the roster have been this season?
Yeah, I mean, I think that was one of the things I talked about in the locker room as I pointed Sid out is, look what that attitude, look what that consistency has gotten him. And it hasn't gotten him that all year long. There were times where I'm sure when he was sitting in that stall after a game that he didn't play, it was tough. But it didn't change his approach the next day. It didn't change his, relationships with his teammates. Nothing changed. He became the same guy determined to, figure out a way to get on the floor. And, we need more guys to have that type of consistency, with their attitude, not with their production, with their attitude and effort. And good things will happen to you.
With Dre, you're getting some energy when he comes in there. You're getting some things that it seems like when he gets around the basket, sometimes he doesn't know what he's going to do with it. How do you work on that, or how do you fix that?
Well, I think he's really good when he gets his tail around the rim. I think he's got wide shoulders. I think he has a really good knack for getting defenders in the air and gaining an angle. He's got a soft little fade away when he feels like he can't necessarily get an angle to the basket. But he's a sophomore, and he's a guy that has to be a little bit more consistent. He's got to become a better passer when all of a sudden there becomes a lot of traffic around him, and that hasn't always been the thing that he did in high school or something that comes natural to him. It's something that we're working on, and the good thing is Dre's another guy like that is willing to be humble enough to know he's got to work to get better at certain things.
Chris, I've heard coaches say before, there's a limit to how much you can teach as long as you're still teaching like effort, as long as you're still coaching them on being consistent every day about how hard they play, that kind of stuff. Have you had that experience with this team that you're still trying to get them to that point so that they can build on it?
Yeah, I think the thing that I've noticed with a few of the guys on the team is just when things aren't going necessarily great for them, they struggle being consistent with their effort, and that's just you can't do that at this level, and they get exposed, and so we're working through that. We're trying to get them to understand that especially at the high major level, that it's important. You've got to be able to play through your issues, and when we get that, then those guys will be the players we know that they're capable of being.
You just played Pitt 10 days ago or whatever, last week.
Yeah.
It probably won't be much different. Obviously, it was different in that game because Hughley went out with the fouls early. What do you kind of expect from this game? And that was a pretty physical game.
Yeah, I mean, I always think that when you play physical or when you play Pittsburgh, it's going to be physical. I don't care who's on their schedule. That's just the approach they take, and you can't have back down. Hughley's one of the better low post scorers in our league. They look to him almost every possession. They had to completely change their approach in the first half against us when he went out. They went to more of a ball screen, try to find the roller and try to find the tagman type of team. And then when he got back in the second half, they went to him almost every possession. So we've got to fight for post position defensively. We've got to do that without fouling. He draws a crazy amount of fouls and gets to the free throw line. He fouled out 2 of Boston College's big guys, and I felt like they actually did a decent job. Fortunately for us, we do have a lot of bodies at that position, but we can't have him go through those bodies like a wrecking crew, which he's more than capable of doing.
Obviously, I don't know, maybe a complete aberration, but the 11 points out of your starting lineup the other night, do you think about changing that for the next game?
I want us to be consistent. Again, I don't want to be shuffling lineups constantly. So we're going to go with the same lineup, but guys got to be able to respond. We haven't got off necessarily to poor starts, but those guys, have to be, again, more consistent for us. It just turns out that no matter when the starters were in, obviously they're in the beginning of the game, but throughout different stretches, they just weren't very productive. So again, we didn't come out of that first TV timeout down 14-2, but we've got to get better play from the guys that start for sure.
Was there anything in that last game against Pitt that you want to try and do slightly differently, whether it be like backup rotations or kind of like set plays or anything like that?
There's some adjustments that you certainly make from game 1 to game 2. Those adjustments will stay sort of in-house, but at the same time, we know who Pitt is, and they're really good at getting the ball into Hughley. They tried to mix it up in game 1. They hadn't shown a lot of zone. They'd shown a little bit of zone going into our game. They tried to go a lot of zone to start the game. We did a good job in the way we attacked it, and then they went all man-to-man. So, it'll be more of the same, but again, game 1 was nip and tuck, and so we got to do an even better job expecting Hughley to be on the floor a lot more.
It does seem like this team, for whatever reason, when you're on the road, you play a little bit better or a little more consistent on the road. Is that something about being together and being away, maybe?
I'm not sure what it says, but it's a good thing because it's obviously, no matter what season you're in, it's hard to win on the road. And no matter what environment you go in, it's either raucous or there's no one in the building. And in either case, those are hard environments. And so, our team, by and large, has been pretty competitive on the road. We've stolen a few, and, tomorrow's got to be no different.
Chris, I think people after the game the other night sensed some frustration from you, obviously, about the consistency stuff. How do you address that with your team when you've got something like that that's
just continually? That's not been a one-shot meeting. This has been something that we've been, hammering and talking about, all year long. And so we just had to, there's no magic potion. There's no magic dust you just sprinkle on, and your mistakes are going to disappear. The only way we know how to work at it is show film, drill it in practice, and try to be better in the game.
Anything else?
Thanks, guys.